Mr. President, it was a pleasure to hear from President Trump last night on some of the achievements of his first year in office and his continued plans to make life better for hardworking Americans. It's something to remember the situation the President was facing 13 months ago when he took office. America and Americans had been through a lot under President Biden, a historic inflation crisis and the worst border crisis on record. And on top of that, hardworking Americans were facing the prospect of a $2.6 trillion tax hike in 2026. President Trump and Republicans took office last January determined to turn the page on these crises. We knew things weren't going to get fixed overnight, but we also knew that we could do a lot to make life better for hardworking Americans. And we got right to work. A prime order of business was stopping that $2.6 trillion tax hike on hardworking Americans, something I should say we achieved with our signature 2025 legislation, the Working Families Tax Cuts. But we weren't going to stop there. We were determined to put more money in Americans' families' pockets. And that, Mr. President, is exactly what we did. In addition to preventing a $2.6 trillion tax hike and making permanent the tax relief Republicans passed in 2017, the Working Families Tax Cuts implemented a slew of additional tax relief. We increased the child tax credit by hundreds of dollars and linked it to inflation so its value will never go down. We boosted the standard deduction, which is claimed by 90% of taxpayers in this country. We instituted a new $6,000 bonus deduction for lower and middle income seniors. We implemented no tax on tips and overtime, allowing hardworking Americans from nurses to rideshare drivers to keep more of their own money, and more. And Americans are already seeing this relief in the form of bigger tax refunds. But the Working Families Tax Cuts didn't end with tax relief, Mr. President. We repealed Democrats' natural gas tax and took steps to unleash American energy production to ensure that Americans have a stable, plentiful, and affordable supply of energy. We took measures to modernize the farm safety net, something very important to the financial well-being of farmers in my state of South Dakota and around the country. And of course, the Working Families Tax Cuts also address border security and national defense. Thanks to President Trump's work to stem the national security crisis at our southern border, encounters at our southern border are currently a tiny fraction of what they were under President Biden. And unlike under President Biden, individuals apprehended attempting to cross our southern border are not being released into the interior of the country. And the Working Families Tax Cuts bill helps ensure that we have the resources to maintain this kind of secure border for the long term. Mr. President, the Working Families Tax Cuts may have been our signature legislation last year, but it's far from the only thing we've been doing to help make life more affordable for hardworking Americans. The President and Congress have taken action to repeal a number of burdensome rules and regulations that would have driven up energy and appliance prices in this country. In this year's health care appropriations bill, we prioritize measures to make prescriptions less expensive at the pharmacy. And we're looking to soon take up major housing legislation to make home ownership more affordable and accessible for everyday Americans. My Democrat colleagues may talk a good game about helping hardworking Americans, but Republicans are actually putting in the work. We're putting more money in Americans' pockets and working hard to make life affordable for American families. And as President Trump made clear last night, we are just getting started. Mr. President, before I close, the President awarded medals to several military members last night, including the Medal of Honor to South Dakota native Royce Williams. Then Lieutenant Williams heroically took on multiple Soviet MiGs during action off the Korean Peninsula in 1952, hitting not one but several of the aircraft before piloting his own heavily damaged plane back to an American aircraft carrier. I know from personal experience, my dad, that South Dakota has produced some incredible naval aviators, and we are incredibly proud of our South Dakota heroes, including Mr. Williams. And Mr. President, we are grateful for their service.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.